the other theme of the workshop will be the theme of essences. Or so what are essences? Essences are kind of, you can say, when you meditate, it doesn't always feel the same way. Like sometimes when you meditate, you get you can recognize sort of when you are moving into a meditative space. But if you pay attention to the meditative state, it won't be the same every day. Like one day you sit down, you meditate. After a while, maybe you will get absorbed in this exquisite sense of peace. Like you are just enveloped in this soft, dark, peaceful state. So beautiful. It's like deep, restful sleep, but you're awake. So, and in this state, often everything dissolves. It's like your trouble dissolves, you can dissolve sometimes. And there is just this beautiful, black, peaceful state. But sometimes when you sit down to meditate, that's not what you feel. Nothing dissolves. You don't feel particularly peaceful, but you feel this inner sense of joy. After a while, you sit there, you meditate, and after a while, this lightheartedness, this wonderful, joyful state come to you. And it's like everything, there your trouble don't dissolve, they evaporate. There is this distinct feeling of energy moving upwards in your body. You feel uplifted, joyful, lighthearted. You recognize this as a meditative state, but if you compare it to the other one, it's very different. Or something, sometimes maybe you sit and you meditate and you can feel a state where you are so solid, so grounded. So like, it's not quite peace, nothing dissolves, everything is there, but you feel like a mountain. This is also like a classical way of guiding a meditation. A classical image of guiding a meditation is that you are sitting and you're imagining yourself as a mountain. Now, the cool thing about being a mountain is that there is not much that's gonna make you move. Like the weather can change, birds can fly around you, you know, airplanes can fly past, the sun is out, the moon is out, it's a storm, and you kind of don't care. There is none of the things that are happening around you that is a reason for you to even lift a finger. And in that state, you can just sit there and observe, and you don't get involved in anything, but you can still look at the things. You can be interested in things, but it's almost like the idea that you should actually do something never occurs to you. It's a very beautiful state to sit in. Very calm, very easeful. So does it make sense? Can you recognize? Yeah, there's many other states that you can experience when you meditate. So, but that's the first interesting thing. And these different kind of states that you can experience often in meditation, you can also experience them out of meditation, but it's many people know them from meditation. These states are what we can call essences. We call them essences because you can say it's the essence of being present. Like if you look at what it means to be present, and you kind of take all the parts of your experience that isn't necessary for you to be present and you remove them, then what you come down to in the end are often one of these states. So that's cool. It's very nice, and it's very nice to know these states and sort of have vocabulary to describe them. And yeah. Now, one of the things is that if you feel one of these states while you're meditating, you're probably going to recognize it as, oh, this is a nice state. I can hang out in this. It has positive effects on me to spend time in this state. All good. But sometimes we give sort of a negative interpretation of the state. So let's say, for example, you are in a very serious meeting. Maybe you are in, you're having sort of you're discussing something very important with your partner. Let's say that's the sort of the setting you're in. You're discussing something very important with them, like an important decision you have to make, and you are not agreeing on this decision. So it's serious. Now imagine that in that state, all of a sudden you're going to feel this exquisite lightheartedness. You're going to feel so light, lighter than air, energy moving up, and you're going to feel joyful. Chances are you might feel that this is an inappropriate state. You're not just going to recognize it as a sense of inner joy and say, oh, wonderful, I feel inner joy, fantastic. You say, well, inner joy doesn't seem like the right thing to do now, or the right thing to feel now. And you might even not even call it inner joy. You might call it, ooh, this feels superficial. So you might give it a negative name. The moment you give it a negative name, you don't want to feel it. You don't want to feel it, you push it out of your consciousness, and it can do nothing for you. Maybe what was needed in the situation was some lightheartedness. But when you felt it, you sort of judged it to be, oh, this is a matter of superficiality. And then you pushed it out of your consciousness. So that's one example. Let's see, another example would be, yes. One of the states that you can sometimes feel in meditation, which is exquisite, is just sometimes you will feel like the vast open sky. It feels open, it feels free, it feels beautiful, wonderful, good. Now imagine that you are, let's say you've been hanging out with some friends and you've had a wonderful time. You felt so alive, you've done something that you all really liked. You've been very like, ooh, this was cool, it energized you, you're turned on, you're alive, and you really enjoyed the aliveness. Then imagine that, let's say you go home, and when you're home, you're still feeling some of the aliveness, but suddenly the aliveness starts to fade, and suddenly it disappears, and there's just like a blank, like a nothing. Now, maybe you transitioned from a state of aliveness to just this clear, open blue sky. But because what you felt just before was aliveness and you liked it, maybe you don't feel the new state as just freedom, openness, clarity. You feel it as loss of aliveness. And the moment you feel it as loss of aliveness, you try to push it away. You try to grab onto the memory of the aliveness that you felt moments before. And again, then you are sort of, you're putting a negative label on the state of openness that was emerging in you, and you try to push it out of your awareness. So we all have a tendency to judge these meditative states, these essences, in negative ways. Some people will judge some essences more than others. There might be people who will more often judge the state of lightness as superficial and distance themselves from them. There might be other people who will more judge the states of aliveness and call them, let's say, aggression or something else that doesn't sound nice, and take a distance from those. But what we're going to do in the workshop is to look at some of these states, what they feel like, how it is to rest in them, hang out in them, and then we're going to look at some of the habitual judgments around them that we often have that kind of prevents us from just hanging out with them, that makes us ambivalent about hanging out with them or distancing ourselves from them. When we can recognize the judgments, we can also sort of pause and say, every time I feel myself getting too superficial, maybe I'm actually feeling myself being more joyful. Let's just pause and explore what's going on here. So the more you know the essences and know the blockages that you might have towards them, or the veils that covers them for you, then you will with time be more able to connect with the essences, hang out with them, allow your awareness to rest in them, and receive the blessings that hanging out with the essences can offer you. And the more you can do that, the more you will live a life where you feel that you have the freedom of the open sky, you have the groundedness and the settledness, you have the aliveness, you have the joy, you have the love, you have the peace, you have all of these things. And when you feel that you have all of these things because you no longer block them in yourself, then you will go about in life not being motivated by a search for these things, not being motivated by a lack, but more being motivated by, I like to say, imagine that you have peace, groundedness, connection, love, joy, aliveness. If you just had all of those things, like from you got up in the morning to you go to bed at night, then what are you going to spend your days on? So I hope this gives a little bit of a feeling of what we're going to do in the workshop. So that was kind of the presentation. If you have any questions, we can do questions.